Well, hey guys, today let's talk about postpartum hair loss. Really distressing to go through. I mean, having a baby is quite a feat in and of itself, but then to be left with the stress of having your hair coming out in clumps, it really can take a toll on your mental health. In today's video, I'm going to explain why this happens. I'm going to give you some pointers on what to expect, what to look out for, and things to optimize to minimize the overall extent of postpartum hair loss. So it's perfectly normal for you to lose anywhere from 50 to 100 hairs a day, give or take. However, when you are pregnant, because there is an increase in the hormone estrogen, that actually causes more of the hairs on your head to stay in the growing phase of the hair cycle. It also reduces the overall number of hairs that are in the shedding phase. And because of this switch around, many women note that while they're pregnant, their hair is a lot thicker, it grows faster, it's longer, radiant, they love it. However, after they deliver, they start experiencing hair shedding. Now, not every woman will experience postpartum hair loss. There are some women out there who really don't notice much of a change, but it is really common. It's not abnormal. Social media, ads, the internet, hair loss remedies, cosmetics would have you believe that this is something you've got to bounce back from ASAP, along with everything else that expects you to get back on track like the day after you give birth. It's wild to me, the number of expectations, but do understand, it's actually perfectly normal. It's not permanent, it's not dangerous, and it will, in most cases, eventually go away. But with the changes in hormones with pregnancy, what happens is it moves the hair cycle around a bit, causing the hairs to stay in the growing phase much longer. That's why you're able to grow thicker or longer hair oftentimes while you're pregnant. It also cuts down on the number of hairs that you shed every day. So if you normally shed 100 hairs a day, while you're pregnant, you'll probably shed fewer hairs a day. However, after you deliver, well, the hair cycle is going to shift back to normal. So all those hairs that were being held longer in the growing phase, guess what? They're going to enter the resting phase, and then they're all going to shed at once. And that is really what you experience with the hair coming out in clumps. It's not true balding though, okay? Realize that hair that you see with your eyes, just keep reminding yourself, I'm not going bald. This is just the hair that refused to shed while I'm pregnant. Usually you'll start noticing the hair shedding around 3 months after you deliver, but it can happen as early as 6 weeks, depending on a variety of factors, like how stressful things were for you, events leading up to you becoming pregnant, all sorts of things. And again, not every woman necessarily experiences postpartum hair loss. Postpartum hair loss is essentially a type of hair shedding called telogen effluvium. Telogen effluvium essentially is anything that causes the hair cycle to shift around such that it ends up resulting in more hairs in the shedding phase, the telogen phase. And a lot of things can do this. Having a fever, having a viral illness, getting a major surgery, being under a lot of emotional stress, which guess what? Having a baby can be very emotionally stressful. Poor sleep, extremes of exercise, sudden weight loss, changes in medication. All of these are things that also could be going on in your life around the time of having a baby. So there are more things that can come into the picture and perhaps be making it such that your telogen effluvium is more of an ongoing, noticeable issue to you in comparison to maybe your friend or even maybe a prior pregnancy. Generally speaking, it takes anywhere from 6 to 12 months for this excessive shedding to resolve. Once it resolves and your hair cycle is all back on track, then you're going to notice that it's not as though you're left with bald patches. However, in some cases, the telogen effluvium can make an underlying hair loss disorder, such as androgenetic alopecia, a hair loss condition I have a lot of videos on. It can sort of unmask that, make it obvious to you for the first time. Like you may have another hair loss process going on that's in the beginning stages, and the telogen effluvium kind of unmasks that as it reorients the hair cycle. So in some cases, to be clear, when it all comes to an end, you may be left with some degree of hair loss, but it's not as though the telogen effluvium caused that. It just unmasked it. And that can be very confusing for people. As I've said on here before, there are so many different types of hair loss. But generally speaking, with telogen effluvium, it typically resolves within about 6 to 12 months. I give you that number because I suggest that if you're continuing to experience excessive hair shedding or any type of hair loss that you notice continuing beyond that 12-month period, I highly suggest seeking out your healthcare provider for evaluation, because it could be that you have some other things going on. Pregnancy is a time that can actually unmask underlying health problems, trigger them. For example, a lot of women who have a tendency to develop certain autoimmune diseases, their pregnancy can be the triggering factor for the disease because of the hormonal changes. So you could actually have something else going on. So that after 12 months, if you're still experiencing the hair shedding, it's definitely important to see your healthcare provider. Likewise, there can be some hormonal things going on that are leading to the hair shedding. Thyroid disorder, for example, may be a factor. Autoimmune thyroid disease could be an issue for the first time ever. You also could have an underlying nutrient deficiency. The most common nutrient deficiency worldwide is iron deficiency, and pregnant women are definitely at risk for iron deficiency because growing a baby requires a lot of blood. And blood, making blood requires iron. So your iron demands go up. And hair loss is a sign of iron deficiency. There are a whole host of other micronutrient deficiencies, of course, that could also be playing a role. So here are my tips and suggestions when it comes to postpartum hair loss. First of all, it's perfectly okay to just ride it out for the first 6 to 12 months of increased hair shedding. It's annoying, it's frustrating, but it is normal, okay? It is normal. And honestly, there's not a whole lot that's going to change the game as far as stopping it at that point, because it's just things getting back on track. It's perfectly normal. And while there is always this expectation that we must control everything and get, snap back, there's no quick fix here per se, and every woman will differ in terms of how long it takes to resolve. While you're going through the hair shedding process, avoid wearing really tight hairstyles that put traction on the hair strands. Tight braids, avoid wearing your hair in those slick back buns. Like I said, stress on the body can lead to more of the telogen effluvium effect. Your hair growth is metabolically very demanding, but it isn't, essential for life. So whenever there is a perceived stress on the body, your hair is kind of not top priority, right, for your body. So try and minimize, and I'm chuckling, try and minimize your stress. It's like, I can say that, but it's just such difficult advice to execute when you've got a newborn baby at home, right? Like, try and get good sleep. How realistic is that? Okay, I mean, I understand. Also, make sure you're eating a balanced diet. Don't sacrifice your own health. Make sure you're eating well, you're resting, and really try and set boundaries as far as the things that you take on during this time, so as to keep your stress at a manageable level, okay? Don't make it a stressful time period, even more stressful unnecessarily by taking on way more than you can handle. I get a lot of questions, what's a good supplement for postpartum hair loss? And if you've watched any of my videos on hair loss supplements, I'm not the biggest fan of them. The research for them, in the absence, that is, of a true nutrient deficiency, is pretty weak. Whether or not they're actually going to make a difference is really hard to say. The research just doesn't support that. I think a lot of people recommend supplements like Nutrafol because, honestly, I think a lot of it boils down to wanting to be able to offer something, but it's a slippery slope when there is such limited research behind these formulations. The other thing I will strongly caution against is biotin supplementation, which is often in these hair growth supplements. Biotin supplementation, in the absence of a true biotin deficiency, which by the way is very rare, biotin supplements have not been shown to actually help with hair growth, have not been shown to really do much of anything, truthfully. Maybe a little bit helpful for brittle nail syndrome, but not for hair. But the problem with the biotin supplements is that they can interfere with the accuracy of blood work. And this can become very problematic for you because, say for example, your hair loss process goes on for longer than a year. You're getting into the territory where things are concerning. I suggest you see your healthcare provider to find out, is there something else going on? Some of the things that your healthcare provider is going to do are going to include checking blood work, and they're going to check your thyroid. If you're taking biotin, high-dose biotin especially, it messes up with how the thyroid hormone blood tests are measured. As the blood is going by the machine, the detector sees that marker. Well, the high level of biotin in your blood interferes with and in effect kind of blurs that marker. So I don't recommend doing biotin. Not to mention, it can also mess up some other blood tests, like those that are ordered if you should be having a heart attack. And the postpartum window of time, the year after you deliver, some healthcare providers in obstetrics refer to as the 4th trimester. There are, like I said, some health problems that for some women manifest after they give birth. Having a baby, it is really taxing on the body. That period of time should almost be looked at with the same level of scrutiny as all of your trimesters leading up to delivery, because there are certain biological things going on to recover that, make you vulnerable to certain issues. A supplement can actually end up complicating a potential blood lab workup that needs to be done in the future. Like I said though, postpartum hair loss is a type of telogen effluvium, excessive hair shedding. Do we offer any treatments for telogen effluvium then that might, accelerate the rate of recovery or minimize the shedding? Well, topical minoxidil, sold under the brand name of Rogaine, can actually be used to get the hair back in the growing phase. It's frustrating though, because when you first start using it, it can cause an increase in hair shedding. It is safe to apply it while you are breastfeeding. Just be careful that you don't let your baby come in contact with your scalp, because they might end up developing some hair growth. That has been reported in children. But it's not as though it's going to enter your breast milk. Another option that is as effective as applying minoxidil to your scalp is taking minoxidil by mouth. Low-dose minoxidil is safe in women and can be as effective as minoxidil that you apply to your skin. Comes with a risk of hair growth on the face that can vary from person to person. That's why we use a really low dose to minimize that, and not everyone's a candidate. However, the minoxidil pill that you take by mouth is not safe to consume while you are breastfeeding. So keep that in mind. Okay, then another option is low-level laser therapy, red light therapy, either done in office or a device that you buy and use at home, or both, okay? So these can definitely work. They help to improve the metabolic health of the hair follicle and improve blood flow to the follicle, delivering growth factors. It definitely can work and is evidence-based. It's mostly used for androgenetic alopecia, but there is evidence that it can help with telogen effluvium. Now, full disclosure, I am affiliated with iRestore. They make one of these devices that you can use at home. Before investing in it, you do need to consider the fact that depending on where you're at in the telogen effluvium phase, there's a good chance that it will resolve on its own. All right, so keep that in mind. It's an upfront investment. And if it's something that is eventually going to go away, and then you're left with this device, you know, is that worth it? Probably not. Now, that being said, some women, like I said, they have telogen effluvium and it unmasks, say, an androgenetic alopecia. So, you know, if you're in that category, then talk to your dermatologist or your doctor about your hair loss process. It might be a good option for you at home. But for run-of-the-mill postpartum hair loss, yes, it can help for sure, get things back on track, maybe a little faster, maybe cut down on the overall extent of shedding, but those things will also taper off in most cases and go away on their own without investing in the device. So given what I've outlined for you guys as far as the typical timeline of postpartum hair loss, and knowing the fact that in some cases, if you've had some other stressors going on, like surgery, fever, viral illness, that can kind of prolong it for you. Knowing all of that and knowing how long it takes, roughly a year, give or take, for it to resolve, keep that in mind the next time an influencer is advertising a hair growth remedy to you, because a lot of female influencers in the beauty space will show before and afters, like right here, right? Saying, I had lost so much hair after giving birth, nothing worked, I tried everything, finally I tried this, and boom, here's my hair. But they don't really outline the timeline of those changes, and so you have to be skeptical. Of course, you know, they've tried everything, but did they try everything for like the first 3 months of dealing with it, and then, you know, 4, 5, 6 months in, they tried this remedy, and boom, things improved? Well, that's a timeline for the hair loss to resolve anyway. So, you know, knowing that makes you a more skeptical, smarter consumer when it comes to stuff being advertised in the hair loss space. Likewise, the same holds true for telogen effluvium, okay? So keep that in mind. Not all hair loss is the same. In the case of postpartum hair loss, for most cases, will eventually resolve on its own. Super distressing to go through, very frustrating that the expectation is that all bodily processes must return to quote unquote normal ASAP after you know, creating human life and bringing it into the world. But yeah, don't put so much pressure on yourself. It's perfectly normal to have a lot of hair shedding, very annoying, but it's perfectly normal. I hope this video was informative, educational for you guys, that you enjoyed it. On the end slate, I'm going to link up one of my recent hair loss videos. They are all in a playlist called Hair Care Q&As. I have a ton, all about different types of hair loss. So check those out if you're dealing with some other type of hair loss. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If so, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and as always, don't forget, sunscreen and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.